John had never liked storms. They made the mountains feel even more isolated, like a prison that kept him far from the world. He had chosen this life, living alone in the deep, rugged landscape of the Colorado Rockies. His small cabin was a place of peace, a shelter from the busy world below. For weeks he hadn't seen another person, and that was exactly how he liked it. No distractions, no noise, just the quiet hum of nature surrounding him. Tonight, though, was different. The wind howled and rattled the wooden walls, and the rain came down in sheets, hammering against the roof. John could barely see the landscape outside through the thick, wet windows. The fire crackled in the hearth, its warmth pushing back against the cold creeping through the gaps in the old walls. The storm had caught him by surprise. He had expected it to pass quickly, but the night stretched on, the thunder rolling like a warning. John stirred the fire and settled into his chair, the familiar silence of the cabin lulling him into a peaceful solitude. His dog Max lay by the door, his eyes half closed as he drifted in and out of sleep. The storm outside was fierce, but here in the cabin everything felt safe. Or so John thought. Suddenly the sound of the door slamming open shattered the quiet, the wind whipping in violently as the door crashed against the wall. John shot to his feet, his heart racing. Max barked once, then fell silent, his ears perked. "Who's there?" John called out, his voice steady despite the shock. He grabbed the rifle, leaning against the wall, his instincts taking over. He wasn't expecting company, certainly not in a storm like this. A figure stumbled into the cabin, soaked to the bone. John's first thought was that it was a lost traveler, maybe someone from the nearby town who had gotten caught in the storm. But as his eyes adjusted to the dim light, he saw that this was no ordinary traveler. The woman was unlike anyone John had ever seen before. She had strange, almost translucent skin that shimmered in the flickering light of the fire. Her hair, a silver cascade that clung to her face and shoulders, looked almost unnatural. Her eyes, glowing with a soft blue light, fixed on him with an intensity that sent a shiver down his spine. She wore a tight-fitting suit of what seemed like smooth metallic fabric that shimmered faintly, though it was torn in places from the storm. She collapsed on the floor in front of him, too weak to stay standing. John hesitated, unsure of what to do. His mind raced, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. The storm outside raged, and the woman seemed completely exhausted, as if she had been running for miles. "Are you okay?" John asked cautiously, lowering his rifle. His heart still raced, but his instinct to help kicked in. The woman lifted her head slightly, her lips trembling. "Please, help me," she whispered in a voice that was soft but full of desperation. John moved closer, setting his rifle down. "Who are you?" "What happened to you?" She shook her head, her silver hair falling over her face. I don't have much time." Her words came out in broken sentences, as if speaking was a struggle. "They're after me." John knelt beside her, trying to assess the situation. Her body was cold, her clothes soaked, and her breathing labored. She was clearly in distress, and John could see the faint, almost imperceptible glow beneath her skin. It was like nothing he had ever seen before. "Who's after you?" he asked, his voice gentle, though his mind was full of questions. The woman closed her eyes as if gathering her strength. "They want me because I'm different. They won't stop until they find me." Her voice trembled with fear, and John couldn't help but feel a deep sense of sympathy for her. Whoever she was, whatever was happening, she was clearly terrified. John helped her up, supporting her as he guided her to the small wooden table by the window. He draped a thick blanket over her shoulders to keep her warm. "You can rest here. I'll make you something warm." The woman nodded, her hands shaking as she clutched the blanket around her. John moved to the stove, boiling some water for tea, trying to keep his mind calm. The storm outside howled louder, and the wind pushed against the cabin walls like it was trying to break in. He glanced out the window, half expecting to see something or someone out there in the dark, but there was nothing. Returning to the table, he handed the woman a steaming mug. She took it slowly, her hands still trembling. "Thank you," she murmured, her voice still soft and uncertain. John studied her closely. There was something about her that was otherworldly. It wasn't just the way she looked, it was the way she moved, the way she seemed so out of place in the small cabin. "I don't know who you are," John said, "but you've got to tell me what's going on. Why are you being chased? What do you need from me?" The woman looked down at her hands, her eyes distant as if she was deciding how much to tell him. "I'm not from here," she said quietly. "Not from Earth, my name is Lyra." She paused, her lips tight as she looked up at him. I came here because I need your help. John blinked. What kind of help? I don't know how to explain it. But you are the only one who can help me. They won't stop until they capture me. I'm a part of something bigger than you can imagine. John felt his chest tighten. The weight of the situation was sinking in, but there was still so much he didn't understand. Who was this woman, really? Where did she come from? And why was she asking him for help? Just as he opened his mouth to ask more questions, a loud banging sound came from outside. The ground beneath his feet seemed to tremble. Max growled low, his ears flat against his head. Get down. Lyra hissed, her voice sharp. John didn't need to be told twice. He ducked under the table, pulling Lyra down with him. He grabbed his rifle, his heart racing. The banging grew louder, and now there were voices. Strange voices calling out in a language he couldn't understand. It was as if they were looking for her. They've found me, Lyra whispered, her face pale with fear. You need to hide me. They can't know you helped me. John's mind raced, but there was no time to think. He glanced around the cabin, looking for a place to hide her. But as the voices grew closer, he realized something. No matter where she went, they would find her, and if they found her, it wouldn't be good for either of them. The storm raged outside as John and Lyra crouched low under the table, barely able to hear each other over the pounding wind and the loud banging from outside. The voices that had started softly now grew more insistent, echoing through the walls of the cabin. John's heart raced as he glanced over at Lyra, her pale face reflecting the fear in her eyes. She was terrified, and that made him more terrified. John tightened his grip on the rifle, feeling the cold metal against his hands. The wind howled, but it wasn't just the storm that made the cabin feel like it was closing in on him. It was the fact that there were strangers out there, alien pursuers looking for Lyra. Who are they? John whispered, his voice barely audible. He could barely bring himself to ask the question, afraid of the answer. They're not from this world, Lyra said, her voice strained. They come from a place far beyond the stars. They hunt those like me, fight people. We are different, and they want to use us for their own gain. John frowned, trying to wrap his mind around her words. But why you? Why come after you? Lyra closed her eyes, taking a shaky breath before meeting his gaze. I'm the last of my kind. The last of a royal family, my people. We were once powerful, but now we are hunted. My bloodline holds a secret, something they need. They will stop at nothing to get it. John didn't know whether to believe her. Everything about this felt impossible. An alien royal family? Hunters from the stars? But there was no mistaking the fear in Lyra's eyes. He had seen enough fear in his life to know it was real. A loud crash echoed through the door. The hinges were weak, and with one final push it splintered, opening wide. John instinctively raised his rifle, his heart pounding in his chest. He didn't know how many were outside or what they were capable of. But he knew one thing for sure, they were dangerous. Hide. Lyra whispered urgently. John didn't hesitate. He grabbed Lyra and pulled her behind a large wooden cabinet in the corner. They crouched low, the dim light from the fireplace casting long shadows on the walls. John's mind raced. How could he fight back against something he didn't even understand? And how could he protect Lyra when he didn't even know who or what was hunting her? As the footsteps grew louder, Lyra's breathing became shallow. She looked at John with wide eyes. You don't know what they'll do to us if they find me. Then we need to get out of here, John said, his voice firm. Lyra shook her head quickly. We can't leave, not now. If I'm caught, they'll kill me. And if you're caught with me, they'll take you too. They're not merciful. John didn't like the sound of that. His instincts told him to act now, to fight. But what could he do against something like this? He glanced at the rifle in his hands, but it felt like a toy compared to the force outside. The door was already broken. There was no way they could escape without a fight, and John wasn't sure he was ready for what that fight might bring. I'll do whatever it takes to protect you, John said, his voice low and steady. I'm not leaving you out there alone. Lyra looked at him with a mix of surprise and gratitude. You don't know what you're saying. I know what I'm saying, John replied firmly, and I'm not going to let them take you. They heard a voice from outside. It was low and menacing, like the growl of an animal. She's here, find her. She can't get away. John felt a chill run down his spine. The hunters were close, too close. He glanced around, desperate for a plan. That's when he saw the small trapdoor beneath the cabin's floorboards, half hidden by a rug. It wasn't much, but it was something down there. John whispered, pointing to the trapdoor. I can hide you there. Stay quiet and don't make a sound. Lyra hesitated, her eyes darting to the door. Then with a quick nod, she followed John's lead. He pulled up the rug and swung the trapdoor open. Without a second thought, he helped her down into the dark crawlspace beneath the cabin. Stay hidden, John whispered. I'll keep them distracted. Lyra grabbed his arm, her grip tight. No, John, you don't have to do this. If they find you, I'll be fine, he said, cutting her off. You're the one they want. I'll keep them busy. Just stay down there. Don't move unless I say so. Lyra's eyes searched his face, full of concern, but she didn't argue. She nodded slowly and slipped into the darkness below, disappearing from view. John pulled the trapdoor shut and quickly moved back to the center of the cabin. His heart was pounding, his hands slick with sweat. He didn't know how long he had before the hunters arrived, but he had to act fast. The door to the cabin was completely open now. The storm outside had died down, and the eerie quiet seemed to hang in the air like a warning. John's eyes flicked to the broken doorframe, waiting for the inevitable. And then they came. 3 figures, all tall and dressed in black armor, stepped into the cabin. Their eyes were hidden behind dark visors, but their presence alone made John's heart race. They looked like soldiers, but their movements were too fluid, too unnatural to be entirely human. They didn't walk. They glided across the floor, their boots making no sound as they approached. Where is she? One of them demanded, his voice like ice. I don't know who you're talking about, John said, his voice steady despite the fear rising inside him. The leader of the hunters stepped forward, his body language commanding. Don't lie to us, human. We know she's here. John kept his back straight, trying to show no fear. He didn't know what to do, but he couldn't back down now. He had to protect Lyra. I've never seen anyone like you, John said, his voice almost calm. Who are you, really? The hunter's eyes narrowed, and for a moment John thought he saw something resembling amusement beneath the helmet. You'll know soon enough. Before John could react, the hunter raised a hand. A sharp sound pierced the air like a click of a switch. Suddenly, the temperature in the cabin dropped and a freezing wind blew from the door. You're wasting our time, the leader said coldly. Where is she? John took a deep breath, keeping his composure. The situation was worse than he had imagined. These weren't just people he could fight. They were something else. Something alien. I won't tell you, John said, the words slipping out before he could stop them. Not while she's here. The leader gave a small, chilling laugh. Then you'll regret that choice, human. As the leader took a step closer, John knew the time to act had come. He could only hope he had enough time to keep Lyra safe, even if it meant risking everything.